Hello guys, in the last video I have shown you how to use setter and getter method to protect your member variable from accessing by the other classes or the main class. And I have also shown you why we need to use setter and getter and why it's a good practice to use setter and getter in object oriented programming. Now C sharp has its own way of setting and getting these values, and that is through properties. Through properties, you can also do the same thing and even better uh, by setting and getting the values and not exposing your member variables of the class. So in the last video, I have given you an example of book class which has the member variable book ID, book name and book number of pages. And I have shown you how you can protect these variable by using set method and get method. So if you haven't seen that video, please see that video so that you can understand the setter and getter method. And I'm using the same code from the last time. So we have the book class and these three member variable, and I have shown you how you can set and get values, right? Now let's see how we can do achieve the same thing to protect your variable by properties. So first of all, I have shown you how you can set or you can create setter and getter method for this ID of the book, and we have just used this set ID and get ID. Now let's see how we can do it by properties, the same thing. So what we need to do here is, instead of the setter and getter method, we use public and the return type, which is in our case integer because id is an integer. So we will write int, public int, and give the name of your property. So for id I will give, for example, this property called id, and this will not take any argument here. And for setting the values, I use the keyword set, and then in these curly braces I just enclose my earlier setter method like this. And in the similar way, what I will do is I will just use the keyword get, and I will use these curly braces, and in this I will return my id, which is this variable. So how we have declared this property id here? We have used keyword to set the value, and how we are setting the values in the same way we have done in the setter method. But instead of this id, because this set is not taking any argument, right? And for example, I want to set id. So instead of set id method, what I can say is id b1, which is the object of book class, and we can say b1 dot id is equal to 10, for example. So I set the id is equal to 10. Now where this 10 goes in this property, so we use the keyword value to assign that property or assign that value to your set method, because it's not taking any argument, right? So we use keyword. So whenever, for example, you assign b1, which is an or object dot our property name, which is id is equal to 10, this 10 will be stored in this value, and then it will see if this value is less than 0, and if it's less than 0, it will show the exception or throw the exception. Otherwise it will assign this value to your id, right? and when you call this id, so for example I want to access the id, I can simply use my b1.id and replace it here, right? And let me comment this second console.writeLine. So now to access your id you just need to use b1.id, okay, instead of get method. So this is how you define a property in C sharp. You use set method to set the value, and just remember that you need to use this value to store whatever is assigned to your variable, or whatever you is assigned to your id, and then to get the value you just return it here like this, and to access this value you just need to give the same thing, b1.id, right? We can do the same for our book name class. We have declared set book name and get book name, right? So I will just delete this argument because our property will not take any argument, but it will return a string. So I will declare public string and let name this property book name, right? And for setting, once again we use the keyword set, and in these curly braces we enclose our code for setting the value, right? And for getting the value we use the keyword get, once again get, and in these two curly braces we return whatever we want to return, so string, or we will just return this, okay? And we can delete this get and set method, and this will do just fine, this will work just fine. For example, for setting the book name I can say b1 dot, and it will give me this property now which is called book name, right? And I can assign any value to the book name like this, as we assign it to some variable. So I will give the name the C sharp book, okay? And I can access it once again very simply, just copy this and you can access this property like this. So when I run the program it shows some error. Let's see what's okay. Because I haven't used the keyword value here and it doesn't know what this is, so I need to pass in the value keyword. This just remember always, it doesn't take any argument. Set method doesn't take any argument. Instead of argument you just need to pass the keyword value here and value here, right? Now when I run the program it shows the result. Book ID is 10, which we have assigned, and book name is C sharp book, okay? So I can say book name is C sharp. Now if you have remembered, in the last video we also have this variable called number of pages, and it was we have already assigned a value to number of pages as 250. So it's not possible to set the value for a number of pages. So how we can define the property for this? Instead of this get number of pages, what we can do is we can just only use get property, and we can avoid using set property for that. And now it will just give you the value of number of pages, but you cannot set the value of number of pages. So I will just copy this and I will say book pages is, and I can call this property number of pages here. Okay, and when I run the program, it will run fine. Book pages is 250. Okay, now if you don't have any conditions and you just need simple set and get method, for example, you don't need if if your id is less than 0, or you don't need to check that if your book name is null, and you just need to set and get value without any special conditions like I have illustrated in last video. For example, I will give you an example. So I have a private member, private int, this will be int, and we have for example author. So this, let's take it as a string, and author. So we have author, private member. So for getting and setting this private member, what we can do? So we can define public, which I have shown you in the last video, right? Public void, and then your set author property. So I will just use this, and I will say set author, and what I can do, I can pass a string variable for setting, and I can just use public string and get author, same get author for getting the value, right? So this I have shown you in the last video, what this you can do here, right? And in here I will use the author, string author, and this author will be assigned to this author. So this dot author is equal to your author you pass, right? And you can return this in get method, or return this dot author. So if you don't have any condition to check, and you will have, or when you program a class, you will have many fields in which you don't even need any condition, you don't even need to check any condition, and you will just set and get value like this. So it's more easier to handle these things or these codes by using properties. So what we can do, instead of using this getter and setter, simple getter and setter without any conditions, I will say public, and the return type, which is string, and I will say this property is called author, and then I will enclose it in this curly braces, and I can say get and set. Okay, and this property will work same as these two getter and setter function. So your code is reduced very much here, right? This property get and set, just using these two get and set, your C# code will know that the set will have to set the property or set the variable, some variable, and this get is used to access the value of the variable, right? So I can just remove this getter and setter, and instead of that I can use this property. And even you can make this code really small like this, and this will become a one line code for you, right? Instead of writing getter and setter method, you can just use get and set if you don't have any condition, right? And let's try to assign some value to the author property and access it. So I will use p1 dot author. You can see author property is visible, and let's say author name is, for example, programming knowledge. Okay, and I can access it simply by b1 dot author. Okay, so book author is b1 dot author, and when I run the program it will work fine. Okay, so this property makes it simple to get and set values of the member variable. So I hope you have understood the concept of properties, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment and subscribe, and bye for now.